Hi there, thank you for joining me again. And today we'll be talking about something slightly different, but I think actually crucial to living our day to day lives successfully. We'll be taking a look at personal finance. But before I go any further, continue to watch, like, share, subscribe, and leave your comments because that is how this channel grows. So, I'll be sharing with us today 7 tips on how to save money. Now, there are so many ways in which we waste money. There are so many things that we could avoid doing, and there are things that we could be doing to reduce the stress on our pockets. For those of us who run homes, let's say for instance you're married, you will find within the first 3 months, max, you'll understand why it is a very bad idea to marry if you don't have sources of income. You'll also quickly begin to understand why, when you are still staying with your parents, they would hit the roof over things as basic as toilet paper fell in water. And you'll be there asking, what's the big deal, Seth? These people are too wicked. Let me go and get my own space. Now you have your own space and you understand how it feels. Reality strikes you hard and fast within the first 3 months of your marriage. Everything about marriage is bills. Everything. Bills that you would ordinarily ignore while you were single. You can't afford to do that when you are married. But this particular video will be useful not just to people who are newly married, for instance, but also to singles. It's just something that anybody who is an adult and trying to manage their resources, I think, will find useful. So, before I proceed any further, what is personal finance? Personal finance can simply be defined as managing your money as well as saving and investing. The idea is to make the most of your income and savings. It is very important to become financially literate so that you can distinguish between good and bad advice and make smart financial decisions. In life as a whole, once you hit adulthood and nobody is picking up the bills for you, you quickly realize that one major gap many of us have, especially here in Nigeria, because our educational system is not designed to equip us with how to manage resources, financial resources. You find yourself struggling the minute you finish school. Because for most parents, once you hit 21, you're done with school and things like that, they're really looking to take you off the payroll, so to speak, because you probably have siblings that are still heavily dependent on them. You need to find how to start earning money, and really quickly. So the very first tip I would give is this. You need to have a personal budget. If you're somebody who earns, you make money somehow. It could be that you're earning a salary somewhere, or you have your small business that, is yielding some modest returns and so on. Whatever it is, as long as you're earning something, work with a budget. Work with a budget. I'm going to do another video where we'll break down everything that's involved with making a personal monthly budget. It really helps you, especially if you are able to abide by it as strictly as possible. Let people just say you have a poverty mentality. It doesn't matter. As long as you're not going cap in hand to people, what they think about how you're managing your money should not be something that should keep you awake at night, to be quite frank. When I was single, what I would do is I'd literally, at the end of the month, once I was paid, I take a certain amount out of that and have it as cash. Back then, we weren't doing so much cashless. Cashless hadn't really been introduced yet. I'd take a certain amount out of the bank and I'd put it in different envelopes and label each. Yeah? So one would be labeled fuel. I knew how much fuel I needed to, like how many times I would need a full tank to make it through the month till my next salary. I'd put that one aside. I'd put something aside for food. I'd put something aside for phone credit. I'd put something aside for electricity bill, DSTV. Once I had I literally used to have envelopes that I'd put certain amounts of cash in and stick with those. And it never failed me. So the whole time, as astronomical as Abuja rents are, I was always able to pay my rent. Sometimes there'd be a delay of 1 or 2 months here and there, but I'd always let my landlord know if I was struggling, and I'd go and meet my landlord and be like, I've been able to save up to 80%, but because of this unexpected thing that happened and this, I'm sorry, I don't have the full amount. Do you want to take this right now? Or should I wait until I have the full amount? You approach these people respectfully and, you sort things out. So I never found myself in trouble over rents. Back then, as a single lady who was trying to manage my resources and live within my means, I'd visit bend down boutiques. Yes, I'd go to bend down boutiques every now and then and pick out the grade A kind of stuff, have it properly dry cleaned and everything, and you use those items for years. The only thing I didn't buy in the bend down section was, undies, pants and bras, things like that, no. But tops particularly, trousers and so on and so forth. A good number of these items, it's not really like they're used in that sense of the word. They're just sometimes from sales, over there, their seasons are much harsher than here. You have a solid difference between winter and summer. You cannot wear winter clothing in summer. You can't wear summer clothing in the winter and so on and so forth. So the clothes become kind of useless. So I used to know where I'd go to get grade A stuff that wasn't brand new from boutiques. And even when I was buying brand new items, I used to avoid boutiques. Because you see, these boutiques, many of them still patronize the bend down people, get those items, have them properly dry cleaned, and then come and add like 200, 300% onto it and then sell it to you as brand new. I'm not accusing every boutique, but quite a number of them were doing those things back then. So even when I wasn't patronizing the bend down boutique people, I'd buy my items right in the market. I used to avoid boutiques with my soul. And in the market, you can stand and bargain, strike a very good bargain before you buy anything. Okay, so these were some of the things I was doing as a single lady with regard to budgeting without any formal knowledge of how to manage my finances. That was what I used to do, and it served me well. You can also do that within reason. Can you save? For the better part of when I was working, I couldn't save. You see, many of these places where people earn salaries, they're just traps. You just live to collect your next salary, live to collect your next salary. And with Abuja, you essentially work for your landlord. So, but let's not belabor the issue. It's very, very, very important for you to have a budget that you work within on a monthly basis. It gives you some sense of fiscal discipline. So that's one. Then number 2, avoid waste. Where am I coming from? Now let me quickly, that's the reason why I have these tubes here. These are different products that I've had cause to use and still use in the house. The ones that are used by me, when I'm done with them, there's literally nothing you can squeeze out of it again. I learned this from my parents' home. My mother would squeeze every last ounce of anything that was inside any tube before tossing it. This is the one that I have used. Now, this one, still from my own home, has been used by somebody else who feels that it's done and needs to go into the waste bin. Let me tell you why this product has not. This product is still good for at least 4 or 5 more uses, because it's the kind of product that you use sparingly. With just one hand, I'm not even going to use, look at this. Look at this. There's still product here. But you can see that I even picked it without a cover, meaning that this was all set for the dustbin. And this can still give you 5 good uses. So it hasn't, I found it, I kept it aside because it's not going into the dustbin, not as far as I'm concerned. So that's it for reducing waste. Make sure that you use everything fully, especially all these ready-made things that come in tubes, in cans, and so on and so forth. Use every last bit of it. You bought it. You don't owe anybody any explanations or apologies. It's your money. Apart from that, food. Food. When it comes to waste, please, what I encourage is dish the quantity of, no matter how hungry you are, dish less than you think your appetite requires right now. There's more in the pot. Clear your plate, then come and add. That is a much better strategy than heaping your bowl full of food, because in that instance, you think that you are so hungry. So you heap food onto the plate, then you go, and then you discover that halfway through the meal, you're satisfied, and then it ends up in the dustbin. And many youngsters will do this because they literally have no comprehension of what money is. They just don't know. They're not even trying to be cruel or mean or nasty. They don't know. Is it not just half a plate of rice? After all, we have a full sack in the kitchen. So you want to avoid waste by maximizing. Maximize everything you buy. Use it till the very last. Another point to keep in mind, if you can afford it, buy items, non-perishable items like soap, detergent, oil, certain kinds of condiment like seasoning cubes, salt, milk, beverages, rice, and other things. If you can afford to, buy such items in bulk. First of all, remember the prices keep fluctuating. So buy in bulk, And then when you buy in bulk, you also save up on the cost of constantly going back and forth to the market. When you buy in bulk, you buy cheaper. So if you can afford it, instead of buying 1 mudu of gari, 1 mudu of rice every time you go to the market, buy in bulk, if you can afford it. If it is not possible for you to buy like a whole sack of rice, for instance, when I was living alone, the smaller sack could take me almost an entire year. How many cups am I cooking at a time? Yeah? So, but if for any reason you cannot afford to buy an entire sack of rice, maybe you want to buy a tin. Or when you go to the market, instead of buying just 1 mudu, maybe you buy like 3 or 4. Okay? But then again, you have to work with what your pocket is saying. If you can't afford it, there's nothing wrong. You just can't afford it, you let it go. There's something that some women do, which I find admirable, but I've not been able to implement in my own household. Every home has its own rules, and couples differ on these things. It's something I'd be able to implement, but it's not the kind of thing my husband wants. However, I had this friend, and believe me, her husband is not poor, neither is she. She was my colleague at the office, and we're earning good salary. So, but she had this thing where she would buy like non-perishable, like the beverages, for instance. She used to, let's say milk. I never saw her buy a tin of milk. Mm-mm. She'd buy the sachets, those ones that come in rows of 10. She'd buy the sachets. You know why? She had discovered that her children, who were not like tiny babies anymore, these were preteens, she had discovered that they had fallen into, like a milk drinking contest where they would like make a paste of the thing and gulp it. That it was like a hobby. Then the quantity that would end up on the table and on the floor would be enough to make another decent cup of tea. She started rationing milk now. So she'd buy the sachets. In fact, the first day I saw her buying sachets, I was like, oh, when the shop you went to, they didn't have it in the tin. They were like, no, my children are trying to drive me mad. I said, what happened? She said, listen, these children, and they're not babies, when they go in, a small cup of tea, they'll put like 5 tablespoons of milk. And they're happy to do this 7 or 8 times in the day, in addition to eating proper, well-balanced meals. So she said no, she didn't come to this life to spend all her money buying milk, so she started rationing milk. So she'd buy the sachets, cut 3, and give each child. These 3, if you like, you can empty all into 1 cup. That's your business. That's the quantity you're having for today. Initially, I laughed. I said, you're being too hard. But when I thought about it, she's teaching these children how to curb waste by rationing food in an intelligent way. She wasn't doing it in a way that the children would feel deprived. They still have access to milk. But she was doing it in a way that they would realize that the 5 or 6 scoops they were using per teacup was absolutely unnecessary and had nothing to do with them staying healthy. At that point, it was just raw waste. So she would ration it. She would also fetch the number of cups of rice that she felt would be adequate for a meal for the entire household at a time, and keep the rest of it locked up. Same thing with every other thing that she could keep in storage, So rationing is good if you and your husband are on the same page, because there are some people that will feel it's rather extreme and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, you do what works for you and your household.